I told you I was going to do this, and I'm actually following through with it this time. My series, this new thing with talking with authors of indie books. This is
Kiersten
Kiersten.
Marcil.
I always know it's Kiersten. I had a friend in college. Her name was Kiersten, and that
Yeah.
threw off the name for me forever. So
Yeah.
Kiersten Marcil, but I will let her introduce herself and her books.
I'm Kiersten Marcil, author and adventure into history. I write the historical fantasy saga, The Enlightened. The first 2 books are here. I'm currently writing book 3, and there will be 5 in the saga by the time I'm done.
These are really powerful. You could just talk like normal volume. Not to be rude, I'm not trying to.
I'm a former actor, so I'm used to like projecting to a theater of people.
Awesome. Did that play at all into the books, like that history with your acting, or like maybe any of the shows that you didn't know?
No.
No,
No, surprisingly not. No.
Even just as an art form on its own.
I think in terms of, because I was trained to do improvisation and I've worked a little bit in that sense. I think that helps in terms of my writing because I am a dialogue first author, and then I build the action and the description around the dialogue based on how I need the pacing of the story to go.
Okay.
So I guess in that sense.
Okay, cool. But the bulk of your background, your inspiration, I would assume for this is your own personal history with your interests in the American Revolution and the organizations you're part of, right?
Yeah, I think so. I've always kind of been drawn to the colonial period, to the Revolutionary War. I couldn't tell you why. And so oddly with this series, the idea for the story came first. I had a dream one night about a man who came up behind a woman and tried to cut her throat.
Huh.
He spoke German to her to see if she was a Hessian. In my book, it's chapter 2. He speaks Latin instead in the story. And so right around on the point in chapter 2 where the redcoats are attacking the 2 of them, they go to bayonet the female lead. I woke up and I was like, no, I need to know what happens next. I need to know what happens next. And it kind of stuck with me. And I had an opportunity when I was in law school to be a research assistant for a professor who was writing about James Madison's contribution to the Constitutional Convention of 1787. My job was to research their history, which of course brings you into the war. And it just kind of really built from there.
Mm-hmm. So before we get too into that, what is the book about?
Okay, so this is about a woman from our time who is fighting for survival alongside a captain in America's Revolutionary War who is hunted by a dark entity that threatens his secret mission and vow to help her find her way home.
All right. So this came from partially your dream, partially this experience you had while you were in law school. How has that inspired your overall writing style? Because I mean, from what I've gathered from the 2 books, is they're slow paced, like character focused, with very, very detailed looks at that era. I think I've definitely learned something from there, but
that's good.
The whole point of the book is this modern day woman transported to the Revolutionary War era, and she's kind of got a leg up on it in a way, like her knowledge of the time, because of her background with her own father.
Yeah.
But in a lot of ways, there's still a lot of learning going on. Yet the character being able to do this, tell the story through that character, being able to follow the story through that character gives the audience a great kind of guide to that time in a very detailed way. A very, I guess the best way I can say this is, in my books, in Empire of the Void, it's these 2 people from Earth going into a complete unknown territory. And the way I've tried to approach that is, I can only let the audience know what the characters know. So the characters know nothing. The audience knows nothing. The audience for your book has a leg up on that.
Right.
And with your experience, it's a great leg up because it really does bring the reader entirely into that world in a very thorough way.
Thank you. I'm glad you spoke of it that way because I hadn't thought about this in so long because I started writing back in 2019. But the reason why the book is structured the way it is because I don't consider myself a historian. I was greatly complimented when somebody called me an expert in the Rev War, because I'm so not. But because I was so nervous, I had never written a book before, didn't have the kind of knowledge I felt I needed to write it. I did choose that vehicle of having a woman from the 21st century go into this world, and chose a first person narrative, so that if I, as the author, made a mistake in translating history or the setting or something, I could have it be, well, it was just her. She didn't
Yeah.
know. Like, she's not from that
Well,
time.
I think you also have the grace of it is fiction.
Yes.
You are, and this is where writing style comes in. Because honestly, if I had only picked up your book, just like bought it off of Amazon and given a read, I'd think, okay, this is a historian that decided to write fiction.
Oh, thank you.
And that's true. That's not just me trying to be flattery. Like it's true. Like
Thank
because
you.
the way you write, it's so detailed with such a knowledge of it that I would
Thank you.
think, like there's a fantastic book. I may have mentioned it to you before. It's called New York, by Edward Rutherford,
Mm.
and it's a complete history of New York City,
Mhm.
fictionalized through like one family lineage, and
Yeah.
it's phenomenal. Um, but it's that same kind of thing where it's like, oh, this person is a historian that decided the best way to convey history is to give it a fictional narrative. Um, and that's what I got reading your book. So it is funny
That's
that you say you're
so
not a historian, but
funny.
other people have mentioned that too, because
Yeah.
it's true.
Thank you. Well, I research as I write, because I am a discovery
Mhm.
writer. So I definitely, and you can maybe see it in the first book especially, did not have a plan. I just let the characters take me where
Mhm.
they wanted to. And so book 2, which is like every person is a real person
Yeah,
from history except 2 of
yeah.
them.
It was definitely more so in the second book that I was
Yes.
like, she was a historian, right?
But I let the research guide the
Mhm.
story as I was writing it. So there were things in there that I didn't plan, or there's even just throwaway comments, moments, whatever, that you wouldn't think anything of as a
Mhm.
reader. But I read it while I was writing, and thought, all right, I'm going to throw that in there. Like at the end, Colonel Kosciuszko is my favorite person from history, from the war. And he comes out, yeah, everybody says he's a favorite character in book 2, because I think part of that is just my love of who he is. And he's just a great person. But at the end of the book, there's a throwaway line about how the general is mad at him because he's been gone all afternoon. And we don't know why in history there was this sudden falling out between the general and Colonel Kosciuszko, but there was, and it was a detail that I could throw in
Yeah.
there at the end of my book, which nobody will know it's real, because it seems like it's such a throwaway fiction piece.
But that is so much fun. Like,
Yeah.
again, my experience is totally different. I don't have to do as much research. I've learned I still have to do some, maybe just to make my brother happy. But I can do whatever I want with sci-fi because mine is more in the
Right.
fantasy end.
Right.
But your research for this, like that kind of small stuff, I think people, um, just casual readers will enjoy it because it helps the story. It's fun to the story, and
That's a,
there's the strong mystery aspect of it.
hmm.
But other like historians, I'm gonna say other historians. I think you've
Okay.
earned at this point,
Oh, thank you.
as well, just because you've clearly done your research.
Thank you.
So at this point, other historians can read it, pick up on that, and be like, "Of course, there probably wasn't some mysterious, like dark supernatural entity, but this is so much fun
But
because you're building off something that is real."
thank you.
Um, JT McGee, like we were talking
Yeah.
when I was talking with him, he was saying something similar because he takes a lot of like real, I can't say real world because it's mythology, but like mythology and like unsolved mysteries, and then
Hmm.
uses that to build off of his
That's cool.
make believe thing. So in a way, you two have kind of tapped into a similar
Well,
uh, creative note.
yeah, I have that too, because a lot of the times when you read about the war, there is this tying of just kind of odd things that happen that they put on Providence. Heaven. They say that Providence was on their side,
Mhm.
and so I've definitely used that as a guide in my writing. So, for example, I have a short story that's available to my newsletter subscribers. It tells the backstory of Jonathan, the captain that we're following. And in that, it's the Battle of Long Island. And one of the cool things that happened during the Battle of Long Island is as the Americans are trying to escape Brooklyn Heights, this fog rolls in as the sun is rising, as they're trying to escape before the British realize that they're fleeing the island. And the fog rolls in just over the Americans and not on the British side. So there's stories from the time period. It ends up in the newspapers about how they could hear the British ships as they're passing by and hear the boatswain giving orders, but they're completely blocked until they escaped into Manhattan and the army got away.
That's so cool.
And it is so cool. And it's just, as an author, it's so inspiring. And so, of course, it was the magic of the Enlightened universe.
But now you also have, I think it's a very fun, challenging responsibility, because people are going to go into this look for, a historical fiction built on supernatural elements. But now you also have to distinguish, like, some of this stuff like that is real. That wasn't, maybe it was a supernatural event. Who knows? But that wasn't your imagination. There has to be a distinction now there. Do you think that's challenging at all to separate those moments, or do you think it is what it is and it just flows?
I think that's just you let it be what it is. I think certainly when we have the possessed, in my world, I use the idea of elemental magic, and I've translated into that is how demons come into this world, as they possess an element. And so there is a earth demon that we meet for the first time in the second book. The third book I'm writing, there's air demons. And so that, I think we can clearly say.
Well, even with that though, in your research, have you found from the time, like, any kind of like common witchcraft practices people believed in, or common like superstitions that you've used to integrate that into your own fantastical elements?
I think coming up we'll see more of that in book 4 with the I'm heading towards the Battle of Monmouth. Gosh darn you, Diana Gabaldon, for getting there before I could, because I've been working.
Oh, another author?
Yes,
okay.
the Outlander author last season did the Battle of Monmouth, and who the hell knows that battle if you're not a historian? But anyway,
I thought you were talking about like you were just still cursing some general for being there.
No, but I could do that too. No, but there were things like there was an eclipse of the sun at that point at June 1778, and so there were superstitions about the eclipse. There's an odd incident with a gun that's coming up in my third book that is taken from a memoir, and it was the weirdest thing the man had ever seen in his whole life.
I'm excited for that.
Yes.
So now, okay, you've done a lot of research, you've done a lot of planning, but you said before you let the first story guide itself.
Yes.
That's all well and good. It's a lot of fun.
Yes.
But then you get to the second one, and now the third, and you realize, okay, there has to be more of a plan.
Yes.
Has that affected your outlook at all on the first book?
It hasn't changed the outlook in the first book. I've run myself into a little bit of problem as I'm writing book 3, because I realized book 2 was never supposed to happen. My characters took over. I had a really good writing weekend, and what is now the last 3 chapters all was written in one weekend. And they put me in that cliffhanger ending that about that people curse me for. But the story was supposed to continue and go elsewhere. And then my research, the characters taking over, is what led me to West Point, and I had to go to West Point. So book 3 is now coming back to the militia that we had left behind in book 1. And I found, however, though, that the story just can't stay in Orange County. I've told that story. We're going elsewhere. So in that sense, I'm looking at book 1 and I'm like, oh, okay.
So you kind of just had to reroute.
But I had started book 3 before I even went back and revised book 1. And so there are pieces that I knew I was going to go back and pick up by the time it was published.
So you did okay, so hold on. What's the timeline then? You said you revised book 1 after you started working on book 3?
Yes.
But was that before or after the first had its original publishing?
No. So the way things worked was May of 2019. I'm like, oh, I wonder if I can write a book. Know nothing about writing a book or the industry. sat down, I wrote book 1 and kept on writing up until the
Okay.
first several chapters of book 3. And then thankfully, this author, award-winning local author, was kind enough to have coffee with me. And he's like, hey, you need to stop writing and make sure you can sell the series before you spend any more time. So that's when I went back and learned about the industry, learned that this is not one giant book I have. It's actually I think at that point I was up to like a book and a half by the time I realized I had to do the thing they don't like you to do, agents hate you to do, and cut book 1 and say, this is the stopping point, rework it so it kind of wrapped its own story enough.
I have a lot of thoughts on all that. One,
don't do that.
Well, no. So I'm in an interesting position, I think, as both
Okay.
a publisher and an author, because I do have to be aware of the business side, and I have to be like, hey, I got to be able to sell this. But I'm also the author, and what I would tell everybody I work with is like, all I care about from you is a good story. All I care about is the story. Like one of our books, Miss Hayes,
Yeah.
she's not very social. She's not present as much in the way that like Joe is.
Yeah.
But it's like, but I love her stories.
Yeah.
Like even someone like I'm not so much a a straight romance reader, like I love romance, obviously. Like my book is a romance book.
Yeah.
But as far as the types of romance books my wife reads, I don't really get into that.
Mhm.
But I picked up bookends. I was like, oh, yeah. It's just so the artistic side of me will usually win over.
Yes.
So your friend who and great credit to him being award winning. If he's successful, he's successful.
Yeah.
But my mentality is always like the story's gonna be first. If I have a story, I'm gonna write it and not pause to think about marketing. And maybe that's not gonna work for everybody. But I just think it's funny as like the artist side of me coming in when I know I have to have the business outlook, but also similarly with how you went about yours,
Yeah.
I've come up now in like I'm finishing my 3rd book in my series, and there was stuff that I always really wanted to do, but the first book, very much like yours, was very much like I'm gonna write a book and I'm gonna have fun with it and the story itself, and then
Yeah.
there's always been a plan. There's always been like a general outline for it. But now I'm in the 3rd book where I really have everything's really coming together.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I didn't really plant the seeds in the first one that I wanted.
Yeah.
So I'm just I went back to the first book, and I was trying to find stuff just like how can I connect this? And I found some really great lines that are like, I didn't even remember writing that, but this actually lends itself very well
Yeah.
to what I would like to go for.
That's
So
cool.
it's like I feel like I'm pulling things from the book I didn't realize were there, but were always meant to be there.
Yes, they were somewhere in here.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't get me wrong. I know the very last chapter of the very last book
Yeah.
and how this series ends, and I've known that since before book 1 came out.
Mhm.
And I've known the guide. Like I can sit here and tell you, oh, we're going to do the Battle Monmouth in book 4, even though I'm still writing 3 because I've had that planned.
Yeah.
I have not driven by the scenery on this journey before.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I get
but
that.
yeah,
Um,
it's fun to rediscover what you wrote in the first book. Especially, I don't know what your journey was in publishing the first book, but mine ended up being rushed at the end because we were meeting a deadline. And
yeah, mine didn't have a deadline because it was entirely just self-published, like on my own time. But
yeah,
it was rushed because I was excited.
yes,
And I regret that. I wish I had taken my time more.
You don't know what you don't know because I was originally published by a small press, a different small press than where I am now. You don't know that thing where now I kind of get, and I'm sure you do too, that why it takes so long for the trad big 5 publishers to put things out, because they are willing to wait and really do that marketing. And like you said, when I started, you started writing, you're just here to tell a story and have a good time. And then you get to the other side, it's about to come out and you go, wait a minute, I'm an authorpreneur.
Yeah,
I am not
that's
just
a good way to put it.
I love that word. I'm glad I found that one. But yeah, you have to have that.
Yeah, I mean, and as far as that goes, like when I when it comes to my publishing,
Mhm.
aside from like my own stuff, like I said, it's a business, but
Yeah.
the artistic side will always take over. And
Yeah.
I had a submission sent in a few weeks ago. Um, some guys, debut novel, like really hard hitting stuff about
Yeah.
addiction, and I read through it. It's like I dig it.
Yeah.
I think there's really something here, but I can't. And
Yeah.
I expressed to him like not because like no, of no fault of your own, like nothing about the quality of your book. I will not take this on
Mhm.
because with life circumstances at the moment and what we have on our list, I
Yeah.
cannot give this book the attention it deserves.
Right.
So, and I know way too many horror stories of people submitting their work to houses only for
Mhm.
them to be like, "Oh, just give us $5,000 and in 2, 3 years, maybe we'll do something with it." So I'm not going to string anybody along. I know what
Right.
it's like to have something you're passionate about. And hopefully, I'm not speaking out of term here, something great
Yeah.
that you want to share with the world. Um, so I want to help provide that for everybody else and not string them along and offer what we can to support them.
Right.
So hearing horror stories about like your first
My first
experience,
experience. Yeah.
I I get it. I try to avoid that, and I would. My first printing of Empire was a complete mess.
Uh,
Because I didn't give it the attention it deserved. I
mhm.
thought it was good. I didn't properly edit it.
Mm.
Um, and the first time I opened the book, the guy who is now my editor after this incident was like, "Oh, there's an error there." I would still take that experience over and over than dealing with a publisher who's taking your book as just another product.
Yes, because and not to say, and I don't know from firsthand experience, but outside of I have a family member who was an agent, and certainly I'm sure you follow agents and editors throughout social media too. It's not to say that the people of the big top five business industry don't have the passion,
Oh
but
yeah.
when you do work with smaller presses and you can get that kind of
Mhm.
attention, or I'm the editor for an anthology of short stories. We've put out 3 of them now, and I ran the submission period. So I for the last book, so I know what you're talking about in terms of choosing stories, and there may be something you love but you just can't give it the time,
Mhm.
or it just how it fits in. um yeah, there is something special about the small
Yeah.
personal experience.
I No, it's true. I think it's actually important to say that our history, um, everybody that I talk to, I'm hopefully gonna have a really cool story for. Like JT, he was my creative writing teacher. We met.
Mhm.
Yeah, you're the guest here, so if you would like to share,
I'll share the
you're a
story. Yes,
storyteller, so
because
you
yeah.
can
Oh,
do
thank
it
you.
well.
And I'm gonna tease you for a minute, which is really more dissing myself. But I hated you when I met you.
Oh no, I remember that. Okay, it's funny. I think it's so funny you say that because I think I know I hope I know what you're getting at. And I said something
I've told
similar
you this
to
before.
Joe.
Oh, did you?
It No, not about you.
Oh,
But in the
okay.
last episode when I was talking to Joe, I told him like, "Hey, there's a little bit of like pettiness here because this is my company and start on my book, but you're the bestseller." I'm in the ballpark, right?
I told you the story. It was
Yeah.
because you were so good at marketing, and I didn't want to like that. I was trying to figure out how to work around you.
No, because I remember that. So we
Yeah.
met. We were
Oh, we're
paired.
still recording.
Yeah, I
Oh,
re-recorded.
I thought you shut it off.
No, I had to stop and re-record.
Okay. Okay.
But no, so we met at the Albany Book
Yes,
Festival. It's a fantastic event.
it is.
If you're an author in the tri-state area, highly recommend you try to go there. So we
Yeah,
we shared a table
we did.
because I only had one book and it had only been out for like 2 months. I was still learning everything, didn't know what I was doing.
I would not have known that at all.
Well,
Would not have known.
so I walked in and I saw everybody at their tables with huge displays
Yeah.
and tablecloths.
Yeah.
Those are a big one. Thank you again.
You're welcome.
Tablecloths, displays, stickers,
Yeah.
bookmarks, mailing lists, all this stuff. And there's a woman who's going to be sitting next to me, who's dressed up in
Oh, that's
colonial
right.
clothes.
I was.
Instead of like wearing the pants, she's got quills and everything, and you were decked out. I was like, I look awful because I had only
Really?
oh yeah, because I had just a single cardboard box
Oh my
with some
god.
books,
That's so funny.
and I was like, I don't know what I'm doing here. I looked like I wandered into the wrong place.
Wow.
So
Would
I
not
was
have guessed
I was looking
that.
at you for like
Were you
guidance.
really?
Oh
Holy
yeah.
wow.
So, but your side of it.
That's so funny because you're so natural. You're so good at what you
Thank
do.
you.
So people would come up to our table and you were doing all the right things, which are the things that I would do too, because I've learned from my husband. He tables a lot of conferences. And just the whole, hey, how are you? You know, welcome. What do you like to read? Drawing people in. And the problem when you share a table is if the both of you have that and you're good at that, people will talk to Andrew and then they're either going to buy his book or not. And then I'm like twiddling my thumbs. Well, I can't bring them in now to talk to me because they're either running away from us or they're buying from you. And you were just so good. And I didn't want to jump in on your toes. And it was just trying to me personally
Mm.
find a balance with that. But you were so kind. You were so kind. And I actually to this day don't know if you heard me bitching about you in the hallway because because you were so kind. You and Lexi packed up at like the halfway point and you said to me, I got out of this what I wanted to, and you left. And I'm like, okay. And that's when I finally started selling books for the first time that day.
Well, I'm glad I left.
But I'm so glad that we still kept in touch because you've been so kind. And you're actually the nicest person.
Oh,
And
stop.
so I'm learning a lot from you
Well,
too, but
thank you.
it's so funny to get your perspective now.
No, it's I no, I really went in. I don't know if my wife's sitting over there, so I keep
We're
pointing to her.
pointing at Lexi.
I don't know if you remember, Lexi, but like I was very nervous. I mean, those
Really?
first few
Oh my
months,
gosh.
everywhere I went, I was shaking like the entire
Really?
time.
Oh, I am
I
so sorry. I
no,
didn't
no,
notice.
and uh, there's some things I've learned to look out for,
Mm,
and a lot of things I've learned. There are some people, and I won't share names, but Joe and I talk about them, people and types of people to avoid.
mm.
And I will apologize for making you feel that way because
Uh-huh.
I have had a lot of experiences.
Mhm.
Ours is a little different because like we were actually next to each other and we were both just doing what we're supposed to do in
Right,
our own territory. But there have
right.
been a lot of experiences of authors kind of just like moving in to your
Yes.
territory, and like I'm
Yes.
there to support everybody. Um,
Mhm.
you know this when we were at Saratoga Book Fest, like everywhere
Yeah.
else we go together, like
Yeah.
even Albany last year,
Yeah.
Valens Publishing only has so many books and genres.
Mhm.
We do not cover everything,
Right.
and there were plenty of times, especially at Saratoga, where people were like, I like historical fiction," and I
Yeah.
said,
Yes.
"Over there, go over there."
Yes. Yes. You
So
and I
like,
do that for each other, which I
yeah,
appreciate.
so I try to be very supportive and like push people around because
Yeah.
I know from other experience like that, um, it's hard to get the eyes on sometimes.
It is.
It's or people take one look and have the wrong impression,
Mhm. Mhm.
and it's not a competition.
Right.
I will share. There's a little, not like an actual competition, but I always do look around at the end of the day, say like, okay, how did everybody do?
Yeah.
Just kind of just to gauge, like, did I actually have a good day or not?
Right.
Um, but there's no real competition.
No.
There's nowhere at the end of the day. We're all just
No.
while the New York Times authors are in the next room over having their seminars,
Right.
we are struggling to just hopefully get 10 reviews on Goodreads.
Yes.
So
But
no, I get it. It's all about
yeah.
and because I know how annoying it can be for like the wrong attitude person
Mm.
to wander and steal and or shoot people away
Yeah.
from where
No.
they want to
And
be.
that was not what you were doing.
No,
But
but
yeah. But I know what you mean. But the thing too is like the literary community, and I don't just mean locally in
Mhm.
here in upstate New York, but even just nationally, what we see through social media is a very there's a lot of good people there who
Yeah,
really do support each other and lift each other up, and you just don't know who you're going to run into. So the author of Pumpkin Spice Cafe, who is
yeah,
a huge sensation, was at Saratoga with us when her first book came out, and
yeah.
so we got to, I don't know if you had a chance to talk to her, but I did, and
I
that's where I
no, I
bought her
didn't.
book.
I I was only there last year. I wasn't there the year
Oh,
before.
okay, okay.
But I would like to reach out to her because Saratoga Barnes Noble finally has like their own local author stand, and I'm right
Ah.
next to the Pumpkin
Ah,
Spice book. So
that's cool.
I'm so excited about that because people like actually like go and search for her book, and
Yes,
now
and
it's like
there you
I'm
are.
right there
That's
next to.
cool.
I liked where I was before because um, usually I don't like where I think this has got to be the last topic, but like usually I don't like the local author title.
Mm,
Um, this came from somebody I met at the Lake George Public Library.
okay.
Um, I emailed them, set something up. It was like local authors, and they're like, "Let's not do the local author thing."
Okay.
And I was like, "Why not?" And she was like, "Oh, I'm a historian."
Mm,
Um, and when you say local historian, a lot of times there's this stigma. It's like there
yes.
might be an obligation from the
Mhm.
community to support you just for the sake of like, oh, they're one of us.
Right.
Um, but if you take that away
Mhm.
and say they're just a historian, that gives a higher level of authority.
It does. Yeah,
Um,
it's true.
so sometimes I've gotten like a local author stand or area, and it's like I appreciate like I'll never complain about being here.
Oh, yeah.
Um, but I would like to see my book next to, you know, in Barnes Noble for the longest time. Empire was right because Valenza was right next to the Annihilation series, and that's a hugely popular book. And
Yeah.
I'd see it on the shelf. It's like I feel like it's real.
Yeah.
I'd see it on some like local author shelves, and nothing against all the local authors.
No.
Um, but it's like we're separated.
Right. We don't have our
So
own place on the shelf, and I think bookstores
yeah,
probably think that they are
yeah.
honoring us and supporting us,
There's
but
definitely nothing malicious about
no,
it.
no, not at
Um,
all.
but because there
But
is definitely an interest, like, oh, this is a local, like
right,
it,
especially if tourists are
yeah.
coming through.
But then when I saw the new local shelf ins, like Saratoga Schaefer's on there and Pumpkin
Mm,
Spice Latte books,
yeah.
um, and Empire of the Voice, like, oh, I like being a local author here.
Yeah, right? That's nice.
um, I enjoyed this. Thank
Thank
you
you.
for coming,
Thank you.
Kiersten. Is there anything else you want to share about your books before we?
Book 3's coming. I promise it is.
All right, where can they find you online?
You can find me on Instagram. My handle is Kiersten Marcil. I have my own website, kierstenmarcil.com. Those are the best places to find me.
And they can sign up for the newsletter on the website.
They can sign up for a newsletter on website, get access to free short stories, all the behind the scenes things that I don't share with the public necessarily are there for your access and viewing pleasure.
And where can they buy the books?
You can buy them pretty much where you can buy books. If they're
You can
not
buy them
sitting on a
anywhere.
shelf, you can buy them anywhere.
This is a real big
Thank
book.
you. Yeah. If it's not on the shelf, you can still order
Yeah.
it, and or you can buy from me, and I will sign it for you.
All right. Do you know of any store locations people can go to pick them up?
I definitely
currently have
know
them set?
Mocha Lisa has a copy right now because I've seen it there recently in Clifton Park, New York.
Did that Barnes and Noble ever get the copies in?
Oh my word. No, I
Real
don't
quick story.
know. Real quick story. So I went down to Newburgh Barnes and Noble because that's where my book is set. And they were so kind to have me in to do a signing. And I get there and they're like, "Oh, you didn't bring copies of your book." And I'm like, "No, you said you ordered them." They said, "Yeah, the order didn't come in." And I was there with people who I'd sent out a press release. So there were people there to get my books, and they were so kind. And they said they'll have me back someday.
So sorry.
I know.
At least they got back to you. They've
They
never
did.
responded to me.
Oh my gosh, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. But
it's a rough life being an author. I don't care how big
it's a
you
fun
make
life,
it. It is a fun life.
it's so fun.
It's so
I
fun.
love it. All right. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Thank you for coming. It's a big drive, but I'm glad you made it. This was really fun. All right. Goodbye.